Okay, so Rob is here, as I said at the top. We're gonna go through his latest mock draft for Fox Sports. It dropped Monday. It's on the website, foxsports.com. It's on the app. If you're an app person, Fox Sports app, you can go take a look at it. We're not gonna do every single pick here. You can go read the story. Make sure Rob gets a click. It's a click industry, okay? So go give Rob a click. But what I do want to do is go through your mock, Rob, and hit the, I guess we'll call them inflection points, the parts where this draft could really change, maybe some of the more interesting decisions, and just kind of get the rationale. Like I said at the top of the show, it's a thought exercise. So let's start here again. I think we said this a couple weeks ago. I'm going to leave Caleb Williams right where he is as the number 1 overall pick. I don't think we need to talk a whole lot about it. At number 2, though, Rob, I do appreciate you having Drake Maye going to the Washington Commanders, which I don't know if you saw Brian Kelly's Freudian slip that Jayden Daniels was going to do everything he could for Washington. But you're like me. You're not buying it. You still think Drake Maye is QB2 in this draft.
I do. I think this is my own personal evaluation. I think that Drake May is the number 2 quarterback in this draft class. But also because, look, with all due respect to the LSU head coach Brian Kelly, he's not making the decisions for the Washington Commanders, and so I think that it's understandable why Brian Kelly would love to see his quarterback Jayden Daniels be the number 2 overall selection, back-to-back Heisman Trophy winners, and all of that. But again, I just look at the Washington Commanders as really a fascinating team. And you just had an inflection point. I think that this is going to be a fascinating point here, just because Washington, of course, is making that transition from Sam Howell, former North Carolina quarterback, and you take Drake May, another former North Carolina quarterback, actually the heir apparent to Sam Howell there. I think that is an interesting dynamic. I just look at the long term upside that Drake May possesses. Look, Jane Day is an incredibly talented quarterback. He is arguably the best dual threat quarterback in this draft. I mean, just what a slithery, smooth scrambler, and it also shows a great deal of accuracy on the deep ball. Made huge strides this past season in that regard for LSU. Drake May, over the last couple of years, however, has been a more accurate, more consistent passer. And so, again, I just view Washington as a team that is very much in the rebuilding process. I think that Dan Quinn is going to be going for the kind of the prototypical build of a Drake May, the prototypical mindset of a Drake May over Jayden Daniels, who is a talented player, but I also think that he was helped by the wide receiver talent that he had at LSU, whereas Drake May didn't get that advantage.
I mean, we did this last week, and I'll stand by it. Even as an LSU grad, the ceiling of Drake May is far, far too appealing for me to ignore. So I hear you on that. And then you don't have Jayden Daniels slipping far at all. You've got him going to the very next pick with the New England Patriots. I'm curious. This really, and I guess Washington has first pick of the best of the rest, but New England is particularly interesting just because, again, going back to, we just don't know, where does New England think it is as a franchise? Because I sit here, like me, if I'm making the decision, I'm like, man, it makes a lot of sense for New England to try to get the hell out of there and get a haul of picks. But at the same time, Robert Kraft might be tired of not having an all-star quarterback. He got used to a certain level of play there for 20 years. So this does feel like a situation where beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and only the Patriots really feel good about what they're going to do here.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. I think that New England, it's going to be interesting, because obviously you are not only moving on from Tom Brady, you're moving on from Bill Belichick, of course. And so I almost think that New England is going to want to do something completely different than what they have done in the past. And of course, you can't get much different than a Tom Brady or a Mac Jones, for that matter, as a kind of a traditional pocket passer, than a guy, again, with Jaden Daniels' elusiveness. So to me, that would make an awful lot of sense. I think that a defensive-minded head coach, former linebacker Gerard Mayo, is going to have a greater appreciation for just how difficult it is to try and contain a dual threat passer like a Jayden Daniels. And unlike Washington, which I feel like is, again, in the midst of a huge rebuild and going up against an awful lot of teams in the NFC East that I think believe themselves to be Super Bowl contenders, I don't know that that necessarily is quite the case in the AFC East. Maybe it is if the Jets get Aaron Rodgers to remain healthy and Buffalo and Miami are able to take that next step. But I really think that New England is a team that is looking for a rookie quarterback to be able to come in and kind of take control immediately and be the kind of the face of the franchise. And so that's why I do believe that Washington at 2, New England at 3 is where you're going to see the next two quarterbacks come off the board. Again, with Caleb Williams, of course, going to Chicago #1 overall.
Moving outside the top 10, and you mentioned at the top that you are impressed with how Michael Penix Jr. is rising up the draft board. Not only do you have him going 11th overall to the Minnesota Vikings, you do have him going in front of J.J. McCarthy, who has kind of been the wild card name among quarterbacks. So if the medicals are coming back clearly, and that is such an issue for Penix with his college injury history, if the medicals are coming back clear, you feel that good about Penix that he could go 11th overall and in front of J.J. McCarthy?
I do. David, with the exception of perhaps Caleb Williams at USC, and I say perhaps, Michael Penix is the most accurate quarterback from the pocket in this draft class. And to me, that is really still where the game is played at the quarterback position. And I just love the fit with Kevin O'Connell and the Minnesota Vikings in particular. I think that the Vikings may fall so in love with Michael Penix Jr., they may wind up trading both of their first round selections to make sure that they can get Penix. Look, I'm a J.J. McCarthy fan as well. I really think that the statistics that he had at Michigan, you can throw out the window because, again, the Wolverines were just so loaded on defense and that running game. But I really believe that McCarthy is absolutely worthy of a top 20 selection. But I believe that Penix is as well. I personally think that Penix's fit in Minnesota's offense is that much better than J.J. McCarthy's. So, yes, I do believe that you are going to see Michael Penix come off the board in the top 11 or 12 selections. Denver Broncos, number 12 overall, would make a lot of sense in Sean Payton's offense as well. So again, I feel very confident that Michael Penix is going to wind up being drafted earlier than a lot of other my fellow draft prognosticators out there are anticipating.
It's fun. I think Penix to me it's like the biggest variation because really, and it's a shame because if you told me Michael Penix Jr. was guaranteed a clean bill of health, I absolutely have no problem with drafting him that high. But because of that, I'm not going to be surprised if he's still hanging out on Friday night waiting to hear his name called on day 2 of the draft. And that's the shame of it is, what does the medical situation look like? How comfortable are all these teams with that situation? But I'm with you, man. If you promise me he's healthy, I have no problem with this. I think people are, you get lost a little bit in the medicals and the age factor. You turn on the guy's tape, it's very, very fun and very, very impressive. So I hear you.